can be a revision session as well. It's kind of a revision session because for yesterday, when I'm going through the Sec 3, it's totally new for them. They have never learned any upper Sec content yet, right? But for y'all, today, the chapter that we go through is hard. It's just like a random, why do I choose hard? I don't think it's random, but it's more like I just choose but we're doing transport and human. Not the whole thing. The point of Head Start program is not really for me to it's not really a revision session, right? If it's revision, we would say biology revision program. The Head Start program is really about okay, what you should be looking out for in next year. You guys are going to Sec 4. You are more familiar than the Sec 3s about what's going on. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I a bit spoiler, but I will explain more what we're doing today. But it wouldn't be just don't expect it's not a revision program, but I think there is some part that it will serve very well as revision. If later when I'm talking about those parts and you are like, I don't know what you're talking about, then that is very alarming. Yeah, some part of this today's session will be about revision. Not really revision. It's like a trial lesson, right? So take it as some revision content as well. Okay, it's 5:05. We shall start. I think whoever want to join should be most of them should be here already. Okay, so thank you for joining today's Head Start program. I know it's a holiday for you and you could be going out and everything, but you're here. So just let me make sure that it's recording. Okay, yes. Yeah, so let's go straight into this. I'll start presenting. Okay. So for those who are not familiar with Overmark, I think for the Sec 4, maybe you guys are probably more familiar to Overmark than your juniors yesterday, because probably started joining since Sec 3s, right, to get all the resources and things like that. But yeah, next year you are the one who are doing the exam, and I would say that Sec 4s are actually a lot more our focus for Overmark, at least for now, at least for bio. Last year when we did a lot of events, it was more targeted to Sec 4, and we push out all the resources, it was targeted to Sec 4. So you guys will be the most concerned batch in secondary school, right? For the O-level channel. Yep, so just before we start, let me just introduce myself. My name is Xing Wei. You can call me Xing Wei, or you can just call me my name. You can call me teacher. I accept all form of address. I did my O-level in Tanjong Katong Girls' School, and then after O-level, I went on to RI to do my A-level. Then I went to NUS. In NUS, I studied life science and psychology. Life science is like bio. Life science is basically bio, but I guess it's just another name. And so you can say that I basically studied bio my whole life, from sciences, your lower sec science, to all the way O-level, A-level, and 4 years of uni, I studied bio. And I also took psychology for fun. Psychology is my second major. So I'm a double major. Because I like psychology, I just think it's a fun subject to study. Yeah. And then I started teaching since I finished my A-level. So right after I finished my A-level, I started teaching tuition. But I started off with private tuition, so one-to-one. But last year, I graduated from uni. Please don't back count my age, but yeah, so I graduated from uni. I got a full-time job, and things get very busy. One-to-one tuition becomes not very ideal for me anymore. So I started group tuition last year, and it has been going well. I think group tuition has its merits as well. Group tuition has that group element, but it's a smaller group, right? Not like your class is 20 plus, 30 plus people. And that smaller group, that kind of interaction is also good. Yeah. Yeah, so that's about me. And then more about how can I help you, right? So like I mentioned just now, I spent my whole life studying bio. As long as it's formal education, I did some sciences, and when I can choose, I also chose bio, right? And so I'm kind of like, I really like bio. I really enjoy bio. I I think bio is very fun. It's something that you can immediately see in your like own body, your environment, uh, even plants, right? Plants chapter is like we see a lot of plants and trees around. So I really like bio, but even with that kind of like passion, curiosity, unfortunately, we still have to focus on like that one thing. I mean, the very fact that you guys are here today, I think this is probably important to you guys as well, is that we want to get that A, right? I think having fun and getting A is not like mutually exclusive. I think it helps each other. It's like you get A, you feel that bio is more fun. When you feel bio is more fun, you also it's easier to get A, right? So the journey to A, what do you need to do and how can I help you to get that A? There are things that it doesn't matter you get tuition or not. Like you have to do it yourself. There's no one that can help you with. And these are like studying, right? It's just like you just have to study, just have to work hard, study the content in like maybe school notes, maybe the revision booklets that you buy from Popular, and you have to memorize. I know a lot of people say that, oh, bio is just about memorizing and you just have to memorize, right? It's full stop and you can do well. Well, I disagree. Bio is not only about memorizing, but memorizing is a key component to doing well. I mean, you guys are different from the sec threes. You guys already went through one whole year of like bio syllabus, and y'all took your mid-year, y'all took your end of year, so y'all know like how is bio in O level, right? So memorizing is definitely important because all the keywords, all the marking scheme they're looking out for, you do need to memorize those things. And of course, doing a lot of practice question, even without tuition, that's what you should be doing. Like the bare minimum, like the super bare minimum is TYS, right? And when I say bare minimum, it's not enough lah. I think in some way, all the schools, your teachers will be giving you extra practice paper, maybe like practice paper from other schools, right? So those are these things that you just have to do on your own to make sure like we are on track on this journey. But there are also things that I think I can help you better in this journey. And those will be these 4 points. And I will elaborate on them like individually on like later slides. But in general, it's about how like having good understanding of all the content, having a big picture, therefore a deeper understanding of the content, a lot of practices, constant practices, and answering skills and exam technique. So the first thing is having like the big picture of your syllabus. So you all have the half the picture already, right? You guys already have half the picture about the syllabus for O-level bio. So let's just recap a little bit. What's the first chapter that we learn? It is cell, right? For cell, we learn about organelles, cells, tissue, and organelles are all the organelles make one cell work. And then we also learn about general cells, specialized cells, tissue, organ system. And then after cell, we learn about movement of substances. And that is our diffusion, osmosis, active transport. Right. So these 2 chapters, super basic. I'm sure like if I ask you like, oh, do you know these 2 chapters? It's probably like 2 of the easier chapter. But it's very basic, very simple, but it's super important because it comes out in every other chapter later on, right? The 3rd chapter is biological molecule, our carbohydrate, fat, protein, and enzyme. This is also one of the, I would say, a basic chapter because, and it's more linked to the next chapter, which is nutrition. So you can see that these 2 are very linked because all your food molecule, your enzyme molecule, play a very big part in nutrition and digestion, right? So this is linked. But everything else, you must remember that digestive system is an organ system, right? And in digestive system, you know that there are many organs. What is one of the most common question in bio? Labeling. Identifying what is X, what is Y, right? So knowing what are the organs and in the organ system, right? For your digestive system, your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, your small intestine, your large intestine, that is the organs that make up of your organ system. Other than that, after that is like a series of human system as well. Transport in human is your circulatory system. So that is what we'll be touching on briefly later on. Circulatory system is huge. It's basically everything that is circulating around your body, right? And the main organ being your heart, your lung. Then next chapter, okay, right. So next two chapter is like nutrition, but in nutrition and transport, but in plants. So they are a little bit, I put it at the side. So later when I show everything, you will see why I arrange it like that. But nutrition in plants, I guess, is a little bit hard related to this. Okay, maybe cells and movement of substances for sure, because this first two chapter is basic for everything. You just need to, every time you do other chapter, you have to actively recall back to like, is there anything I can link to cell? Is there anything I can link to movement of substances? Right. Okay, so back to the human body again, is our respiration. It is the respiratory system and the lung. So you can see that in transport in human and respiration, the key organs are both lung. So in some way, you need to be ready to be able to link transport in human and respiration. Do you know what is the relationship between these two chapters? What are the contents that basically overlap, or basically you piece them together like a puzzle and you see the complete picture, right? So there are some links that are very obvious. I would say transport in human and respiration is a pretty obvious link that you should be linking. And even in like common exam questions, there will be those questions that require information from both transport in human and respiration, right? Those are your obvious link. But through like our classes in the future, if let's say you choose to join it, I will hope to highlight you like the less conventional one, less obvious link, so that you have even better view of the complete picture. But I must say that those links may not be necessarily like exam reason. Like those links is not that, oh, it's important in exam, therefore you need to know this link. That's not the key point here. That's not the point at all. When I say the link, when I stress out those links, is because they are in fact linked, and even if it's not tested in exam, it still helps you to see like that big picture, yeah, about our human body. Okay, so this chapter is probably your first half conventionally, right? I know some schools have very special sequences, but typically this is like your first half. You should have learned this chapter, and hopefully, ideally, you are okay and comfortable with the content of these chapters. That is your Sec 3 syllabus. Next, next one we're gonna learn, it still falls under this purview, like human body organ system. The blue color one is only for pure bio. So I know today we have both pure and combined bio students. So just know that like there are chapters that are not relevant, but not tested for combined bio. Excretion being one of them. So for pure bio, your first chapter next year is probably excretion. It's your urinary system and kidney mainly excreting out like urine, right? So that's excretion. It is also it's still under the purview of this like human body system, and you already have like a little bit of kind of like know a little bit about it, right? About this excretion is from the transport in human chapter. In transport in human, one of your learning outcome that you're required to know is all the main arteries and veins, right? So you know hepatic vein, hepatic portal vein, hepatic artery. Other than that is your renal artery and renal vein, and that is linking to your kidney. So in some way, transport in human is definitely could be linked to your excretion as well, right? So when you are learning excretion next year, your first topic, try to think when your teacher is teaching, if there's anything that like comes out that involve blood, start thinking about transport in human. It's not that you have to know immediately, but at least know that it is linked, and that will help you to see a bigger picture. Okay, after excretion, is homeostasis. What is homeostasis? It's the maintenance of an internal environment. So some of you may be thinking like, oh, I've never heard of this word. It's totally fair. I've never heard of this word until I learned this chapter in bio. Homeostasis is maintaining an internal environment, and you may be thinking, what is internal environment, right? So I give you an example that you can like immediately know. Your body temperature. Your body temperature is an internal environment that your body strives to keep constant at about 37 degree. I guess 1.1 or 0.2 degree off is like normal. It's just like variation. But for homeostasis, we keep around that range. And let's say you go today like VTL, you fly to Korea. In Korea, it's like winter time, super cold, negative degree. But your body will still be around 37 degree. That is how your body, how do your body achieve that? Of course, you wear a lot of thick clothing. But at the same time, when your body temperature falls below 37, you will start shivering. And that shiver will produce heat energy to keep that body temperature up. Yeah, so that is homeostasis. And you'll learn that in details when we go through that topic. Next is our nervous system, eye, and hormone. So that is probably the first chapter, nervous system, for the combined bio students. Why do I list them all three together? It's because if you look at your syllabus, they are actually not three different chapters. They are actually one single umbrella under coordination and response. So you think about it like that. When you are taking a nap, when you're sleeping, and your mom like just come into your room and be like, okay, stop sleeping, get up. Open up your window, switch on all the lights, and like take off your blanket. You know, suddenly from a very dark environment, you get like a lot of stimulation of light. So that is like changes in your environment, and your body will coordinate and respond to it. And that involves your nervous system, your eye, your hormone level. So those things. And we will learn how all these help our body to coordinate and respond to changes in environment. Right. So all this is our body. Like something that probably quite easy, hopefully quite easy, because when I say easy, not like in terms of content, but like easy to understand, right? Easy to link to what we are experiencing. Next one is cell division. Cell division, it is traditionally, from my experience and the students that I teach, the hardest topic in the whole syllabus. Why? So what is cell division? So in this chapter, in cell, we learn how cell is like the basic unit of human body, right? Basic unit of life. For cell division, it is how exactly we become like from a young kid, small baby, until like now, like adult, or teenagers, depending on which phase of life you are at. For cell division, the cell will divide. We all start with one cell. You must know that our origin is like just one cell, but now we have like 30 trillion cells in human body, right? So from one cell, it divides into 30 trillion cells. So this cell division is a process that we're talking about. Why is it so difficult? Why is it the hardest chapter usually? Because it's just something that you cannot see, right? For nutrition in human, you know that you know that you have a stomach. Like it makes sound when you're hungry. You know that you have a heart, it beats, you can hear your heartbeat. But cell division, you cannot see it. So therefore, it's more abstract. Therefore, it's more challenging. That's understandable. But we'll go through the process like together. Next up, we are back to slightly relatable stuff. Is reproduction in plants and reproduction in human. This is basically back to this system again, organ system, the reproduction system, the male reproduction system, the female reproductive system, and the processes of how an offspring is reproduced from like the parents, right? So these are again back to like human body link. After these two chapters, then we are moving to molecular genetics and inheritance. So these are like your last the two of your last three chapters. Molecular genetics and inheritance is like second hardest. Okay, I think it depends lah. Some students think they are the hardest. Some students think that cell division is the hardest, right? Molecular genetics and inheritance. Why is it so challenging? It has the same reason as cell division, because molecular genetics is about DNA, chromosome, and genes, right? So in cell, you already learn that where do you find your chromosome? It's your nucleus, right? Every cell has when the cell has a nucleus, it has chromosome inside. And those are your genes. I'm sure you have heard of these words like DNA, chromosome, and genes, but you'll learn in more details and how exactly are they different and which scenario we use certain things. Like for example, DNA, I'm sure you're familiar because if you watch some crime scene show, DNA traces are found on the crime scene and things like that, right? And genes, you probably heard of it as well. It's like, oh, you have your parents' genes, or the genes is strong, right? Things like that, right? That is appropriately linked to inheritance. Inheritance is about parents passing off like their genes to their offspring. And these are a little bit harder, a little bit more abstract as well, right? It's so small, it's in the nucleus. It's very hard to imagine. But it's fun. It's really fun. I really like these two chapters. It's my favorite. Don't really want to play favorite, but one of my favorite is also some, even though it's abstract, it's molecular level, it's smaller than cell, but there are a lot of things that you can apply to what we see in daily life. Yeah, so hope you look forward to this chapter as well. And then the very last chapter is ecology and ecosystem. This chapter is also so pre-COVID world is the most heavily tested chapter. If you go and fit your TYS, if you already buy your yearly TYS, you go fit your TYS, right? Usually paper 2 for the pure students or the combined students is paper 4. You have at least 2 questions. You have at least 2 questions from ecology and ecosystem. That's how much percentage it has. It is about, what is it about? It's like plants, human, animal, environment. So you combine everything that we learn about, right? Plants and animals, human, environment, all combined into one ecosystem, ecology. And about the environment, there's also like global warming, pollution, things like that. Yep, so it's a very heavy chapter in terms of content. I don't think it is super difficult in terms of like understanding. There's more abstracting. The ecology and ecosystem is, I would say, quite understandable. But in terms of like the amount of content that you need to memorize, it's a lot. It's the most among all 20 chapters, right? So because of that, I would say that, okay, so let me just like mark out, right? These are the chapters. These are the chapters like that you're gonna learn in Sec 4. And the above part is like the chapters that you learn in Sec 3. So one thing, other than like knowing that, oh, okay, they are all linked together, I need to know what are their links, is that you need to realize that the later chapters are quite difficult. It's quite challenging in terms of understanding. Maybe once you master is good, but in terms of understanding, in terms of content, there's quite a lot. So that stressed how important it is to get your Sec 3 topics right, like right now. If you are still very iffy about your Sec 3 topic, I'm not saying that you must be like 100% confident and like, oh yeah, you test me my Sec 3 topic now, I can give you all correct answer. But at least in terms of understanding, in terms of familiarity, you got to make sure that you got those things right. Because these chapters are going to take up some time in terms of like just getting good at them, right? So this is all the chapters that you're going to learn. 20 chapters for pure students and 17 for combined. Yeah, so this is all the syllabus. So along the way, once you know this, of course we want like that deep understanding of all your content. And I would say that for Sec 3 chapters, our priority is definitely that we'll be recapping Sec 3 chapters. But it can also happen, like the next time you will see it, right? It's like probably before your mid-year. Because before mid-year, you will be learning about all this new content, right? What is deep understanding? In terms of content-wise, it's basically about, we start with understanding first, right? Do you really understand? I'm sure when you read through your notes, when you, or like just listen in class, you will already have a basic level of understanding. But what is deep understanding? To achieve deep understanding, I think my tip is to like keep asking why. Those why may not be tested in exam. Those why may not be like super important to know the details, but at least keep asking it to sort out the whole picture, right? When I say keep asking why, it's not also about asking someone. It can be just asking yourself, like, wait, what is the difference between this word and this word? Maybe they are interchangeable. Maybe there is some distinction. Let me just give you like an example. Protein and polypeptide. They are used interchangeably sometimes, but if you just pick it as it is, just like, oh, okay, protein, okay, polypeptide. But if you keep asking why, it's like, so why do we use protein in this case? Why do we use polypeptide in this case? What exactly is the difference? I don't think exam will actually have like a 2-mark question to ask you like, what is the difference between protein and polypeptide? But you do need to know, let's say, enzyme is a protein, but enzyme will never be a polypeptide because polypeptide is not folded, it's only a single chain of amino acid. But enzyme has to have like its specific 3D shape, right? So it has to only be a protein, but not polypeptide. Yeah, so this kind of deep understanding can be achieved when you make sure you are like super accurate. And how do you get accurate? Keep asking questions about to yourself or to your teacher, or like when we are going through content, right? And the second point, linked with other chapter, is what we're talking about. Like for example, especially all the organ system that we're talking about. Digestive system, hepatic portal vein is linked to like transport in human, right? It's going to there is some artery and vein going on. Kidney, lung, all those different chapters, but they all can be linked together because there is one whole circulatory system that are linking them together. Yeah. And then, okay, no, it's not go through the first chapter. That was for yesterday, but we'll go through transport in human later. Of course, for this, right, I have to explain to the Sec 3s, but I think you guys know because you are Sec 4, keywords are so important. I'm sure at some point of your exam, you're like, I understood this question, I understand the content, but I didn't get the mark. A lot of students have that issue, which is totally understandable at first, right? Because that requires practice to answer keywords, answer directly to the question. Sorry. No, I don't want. Yeah. So it starts with understanding. That's why we have like our part 1 and part 2, having a good understanding of the content. Then you apply your knowledge to practice question. Like be it like TYS, be it like past exam paper, you practice them. And then when you are practicing, as long as you don't get 100 mark, right, there means that there is some gap in your understanding, right? And okay, it may not be like total understanding, it can just be like your answering technique as well. So as long as you don't get full mark, there's some gap. Because of that, you can strengthen your understanding again. And this understanding can be content understanding, can be understanding in terms of like, how do you answer question? How do I answer question to get that full mark, right? So this is an iterative process. It's not like one single line. Once I finish revising, I do practice question, okay, I'm done. No, it's as long as this loop, you do it enough, you do it correctly, you will get your A. There's like no reason you don't get your A if you do this correctly and do it enough time. And keywords play a very important role here because it is the basis of biology. Bio, it's like you have to write out your answer. But in terms of marking scheme, if you have seen your school marking scheme, I'm sure you have seen like bolded words or like highlighted words that just must appear in the answer to get your mark. Even no matter how you explain, if you don't have like that keywords, the marker can't give you the mark, right? So this process, understanding, applying your knowledge, practice, apply your knowledge through practice, strengthen understanding. This whole process, keywords play a very important part. It's also about just strengthening your keywords, knowing your keywords super well. Last one is, of course, your exam skills. And I would say it's very linked to the third one as well. Keywords is an exam skill. but there is a lot other exam skills. Like how should you structure your answer? You must remember that there are so many candidates in Singapore, and your marker probably have to mark like thousands of paper, right? And he has to finish before a certain date. I mean, there's quite enough time, right? But there's still a lot of people to mark. And if your handwriting is not eligible, I know some of you are like that. If your handwriting is not eligible, your sentence structure is weird, your answer is not succinct, not straightforward enough, no keywords, then the marker really cannot give you the mark that you may deserve, right? So in this case, this question is 4 mark, and this student answer has 2 tick. Or basically, I just screenshotted like my past student mark, because my past student work. Because how we do is that there's a lot of practice, right? And then I'll make them submit practice before class, and I'll mark, and then I'll go through during the class. And 2 tick means like 2 mark, but in this case, there is no explanation. Like there was like a very brief explanation, but not deep enough. The mark came from like the describing part. So when it is described and explained, and it is a 4 mark question, 2 mark will go to describe, 2 mark will go to explain. So you need to know exactly how much to write for describe, how much to write for explain. Because there's also another factor in exam, that is time management, right? So you want to maximize, you want to like make your time worth it. When you write the sentence, right, it better every sentence, every word that you write, right, is a necessary word that contribute to your mark, right? That is like the ideal situation. And that takes a lot of practice. That's why it's linked to the third point. And then looking at this part, this one, you can see that there is a highlight, right? The underlined red lines here. Those are the keywords as well. So managed to get a few keywords, but there is still other missing keywords. This is a nervous system question. So I know you all probably haven't started nervous system, but it is those kind of example that the keywords are standard, super standard keyword. Have to have all of them when you're answering a question. This is a essay question, right? Therefore it's a bit longer. I think this is probably like 6 mark or 4 mark. I can't really remember. But all these keywords, important, right? Missing keywords. And then for the next question, this student did quite well. That's why I say like pretty good there. But there are still some misconceptions here. But most of it is that the tick and the underline part is the keywords, right? So the more practice you do, the more the keywords are reinforced to your brain, right? Once every time you see questions that's related to this chapter, you know that in some way the sentence structure may be different, the phrasing may be different, but those words have to appear, right? So that is another tip along the way when you're studying. Know what are those words. There are some words that, okay, I'm sure now I tell you, right? If I give you like just like one topic, you can tell me like what are the keywords, which is good. If you can tell me what are the keywords and you can give me a full list of the keywords, that means that you are very ready, very prepared. And that is what you want to achieve before O-level. Okay. And when I say achieve that before O-level, right, it's not 1 week or 1 month before O-level. I think it is about consistent effort, super constant effort. And that is what I think one of the things that tuition offers, right? It's totally fine if like some people just don't feel like they need tuition. But I think what the good thing that tuition offers is that you need to see me every week if you sign up for the tuition, right? For the combined students, 1.5 hours, for the pure students, 2 hours. If you see me every week, means that you are at least for sure getting that practice every week. And I will nag at you lah, at the keywords, everything like that, right? So that will kind of contribute to that consistency of keyword. Every time you see some words, you're like, oh, okay, I have to write these words out. I have to write these words down. Yeah. Okay. Right. So finish that part, all the tips about how to study for bio, what are the important things to look out for bio. We will go through some content about transport in human. Not everything. I will focus on the heart part, like HEART, heart part, mainly for today. Yes, so double circulation. This is a great diagram, right? So for some of you who already have the curated notes, this is in the curated notes. If not, it's also on the website, free notes. This diagram, even though they won't really test it, but I think it's an amazing diagram to remind you how does circulation work. Our whole body, every single organ is linked by blood vessels. And of course, we don't know all the detailed blood vessels. There's so many of them, right? There's capillaries, there's veins, there's venules, arterioles. But the big one is there's lung, and then of course our pulmonary arteries and veins, aorta, vena cava. And just now, those that I mentioned, hepatic is linked to our transport in human, not transport in human, nutrition in human, right? And then our renal is a kidney artery, it's a kidney artery and vein, and that will be linked to your excretion. That is your first topic next year, right? Yeah, so this is the whole flow. There is systemic circulation and pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary, just given its name, you know that it like carries blood between the heart and lung. Yeah, and systemic is everywhere else. Okay. Then we zoom into the one important organ that drives the entire circulation that we see just now is our heart. By now, I do have the expectation that if you cannot yet, I think it's something to work on, is being able to label all parts of the heart, and then being able to list out the path of the blood, right? These two things are super basic. I cannot go into anything more detail or anything harder if like we don't have that, right? Your structure of heart, and then your path of blood. The atrium, your left side. I always tell my students, remember this organ is facing you. Is someone facing you? So your right side is their left side, right? So your left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium, right ventricle. Your medial septum in the middle, and then of course all your valves. So those are your basic stuff, right? The 4 chambers of heart, and then the blood vessels, all the arteries, all the veins, and then your valves as well. You need to know what is the name, need to know what is their function. And other than that, looking at this picture, later we'll talk a little bit about it, is the thickness of the blood pressure and the thickness of the wall of our heart muscle. So later the question, we can take a look at that. So that is the structure of heart, and then it's the path of blood. So for path of blood, of course, this is not like only path of blood. It can start at any time and everything, but it's just like a general, like how I remember the path of blood, right? It all starts with all the deoxygenated blood returning to the right atrium via the vena cava. There's inferior and superior vena cava. Basically, the inferior one is below the heart, and the superior one is above the heart. Right atrium, it backs to the right atrium, and then right ventricle, it goes out of the heart via the pulmonary artery to the lung. Then from the lung, it comes back to the heart via pulmonary vein, and then it enters left atrium, left ventricle, leaves the heart via the aorta to the rest of the body, right? So that is like a normal path of blood. If you can remember the sequence and how it works, it's like a single individual direction from right side to the heart, back to the left side to the rest of the body, right? And then of course all the valves that are present is like red color, there is valve present. So that is the path of blood, knowing like at which point is deoxygenated, at which point is oxygenated. So all these are like the more basic stuff. Once we get those right, then we can look into like a more difficult one. Okay, what's the more difficult one? Application is our cardiac cycle. Before I start, I'm going to drink a bit of water. Right, cardiac cycle. Do you need to memorize? No, don't memorize cardiac cycle. Don't memorize when to valve close, when to valve open. Today I'm going to tell you how to see it. Even if the graph not going to look like that, they present this information in other way, but there's only one method there's one good method, one method that always works to know when will valve open and when will valve close. Okay, before that, I'm going to ask you all to think about the path of blood. Okay, the path of blood here, nope, don't have it. Path of blood here is left atrium, left ventricle, and then to the aorta. Okay, so this is our path of blood. From the left atrium to left ventricle. From the left atrium to the left ventricle, so the blood flow, that is the correct blood flow, right? Then we look at this graph. The y-axis is blood pressure. The x-axis is just time, as time goes. The left atrium pressure increase a little bit, and then it falls. And then the left ventricle pressure also increase a little bit, and it falls. From here, when will blood pressure goes up? Blood pressure goes up for two reasons. Blood pressure, volume of blood, and also contraction. Okay, so this small increase, right, for left atrium is because it contracted. And then, but for left ventricle, it's because the blood flows from the left atrium into the left ventricle. And then the left ventricle pressure spike up. It really spike up very high, right? It's super large increase. So what happens here? Of course, the left ventricle contracted. The left ventricle contracted here. And then this is the key part here. There is an intersection point between two graphs. When there's an intersection point between two graphs, it means that there is a changes in blood pressure. When there are changes in blood pressure, something changed, right? Some pressure overtook. The left ventricle pressure become higher than the left atrium pressure. Because of that, naturally, the blood will want to flow from somewhere there is high pressure to somewhere there is low, right? It's a normal thing, high to low, high to low. It's like how water will flow from more, think of your osmosis, high to low, right? Pressure, high pressure to low pressure. Because of that, the blood would naturally want to flow from left ventricle to the left atrium. But do you want that? The blood to flow from left ventricle to left atrium? No, it's anti the direction of the blood that we want. So therefore, the bicuspid valve will close. The valve will close to prevent backflow of blood, right? So this is when the bicuspid valve will close. Okay, so we're going to continue to look at every other intersection point. So the left ventricle contracted, it goes up, up, up. And at this point, another intersection point, the blood pressure in ventricle exceeded the blood pressure in aorta. So the blood would naturally want to flow from the ventricle to the aorta after this point because the blood pressure is higher. This direction is what we want. So therefore, the semilunar valve open. Then the blood flow. So after the semilunar valve open, the blood will start flowing from the left ventricle into the aorta. It flows into the aorta. At this point, the volume of blood, right? Okay, I want to highlight one thing. The volume of blood starts decreasing here. The pressure of blood starts decreasing here, but it hasn't relaxed yet. It's just because the volume of blood has been decreasing. But at this point, when the blood pressure is lower than the aorta pressure, what will happen? Remember, blood pressure flows from high to low. Means that the direction aorta, blood will flow from aorta to the left ventricle. But it's against our direction. So therefore, the semilunar valve will close. So after semilunar valve close, right, then the ventricle relax all the way. Therefore, the pressure drop down super low. And then it goes lower than the atrium. In other words, the blood pressure in the atrium is higher than the left ventricle. So these directions become natural again. And we open up the bicuspid valve. Right. So that is like your step-by-step what is happening in the path of blood. But in MCQ question, let's say we are doing MCQ question and we just need to like quickly get the answer. When do valve close? When do valve open? Just look immediately. Just zoom in here. Left ventricle pressure higher than left atrium pressure. We don't want the blood to backflow. Close the valve. And in this case, the left ventricle pressure is higher than the aorta pressure. Yes, we want the blood to flow to aorta, right? That is the path of blood that we listed out here. Therefore, the semilunar valve will open. Okay, so for MCQ question, you want to be fast, then you just zoom into the intersection. Anything that without intersection, right? Nothing is happening there. Yeah, okay. So that is a tip for you for cardiac cycle. Think about the path of blood, think about the pressure of blood. And don't have to memorize when does it open or when does it close. Okay. Yep. Okay. That is for cardiac cycle. So let's look into other things as well. Other question here is, why is the pressure in left ventricle higher than that of right ventricle? Why is the pressure of left ventricle higher than that of right ventricle? I'm sure some students, all of you can answer this question, but I'm also very sure that some students are going to give me an answer that I don't want to see. When we say why is the pressure in the left ventricle higher, some students is going to tell me, oh, because left ventricle need to transport blood to the rest of the body. That's why the left ventricle pressure need to be higher. Yeah, that's the answer that I don't want to hear because it's not correct. The pressure in left ventricle is higher, not because it needs to transport blood to the rest of the body. It is because it has a thicker wall. Left ventricle wall is thicker than right ventricle wall. It has a thick wall. It will generate stronger force. Higher pressure. That is the cause and effect. And then the outcome is that it allows left ventricle to transport blood to the rest of the body. Okay, so this sequence of effect must remember, okay? It's the thick wall that caused the strong force, high pressure, and then it allows left ventricle to transport blood to the rest of the body. So if in similar vein, the left atrium and right atrium is the same thing, right? It's because the wall is much thinner, so the pressure is a lot less, and then therefore the blood pressure is not so high. And because of that, because right, it only need to move to the ventricle. It doesn't require that strong force. But don't get the cause and effect wrong. Yeah. So that's one thing to remind you. I know some students probably already know of this because it's quite a common question to be tested, right? Because it's kind of a trick question. Yeah. Okay, so cause and effect and outcome. Okay, and then the next one. So remember just now I mentioned how like these topics are all like our organ system. Liver is linked to the heart by some blood vessel, lung, and then kidney and everything like that. So this question I'm going to ask is, what is the route taken by carbon dioxide produced in the small intestine to where it's expelled out of the body? This question, there's a few things to take note of. Carbon dioxide. When you see carbon dioxide, what do you think of? You think of respiration, because carbon dioxide is the byproduct of respiration. So our body is constantly producing, as long as our body is respiring, our body is producing carbon dioxide, right? Okay, and it's produced in small intestine, right? Small intestine also need energy. So therefore, as respiration is happening, carbon dioxide is being produced. Small intestine is of course our nutrition, digestion. I'm just gonna write digestion. Okay, to where it is expelled out of the body. So same thing, where is expelled out of the body? There's our lung, therefore respiration. And then The last one is the route. They ask you what is the route taken. The route taken, of course, it involves blood, right? It involves blood. So it is our transport. You don't need to necessarily, when you read this, you just break it down like that. But that is, I'm just trying to help you to break down, like, maybe you can immediately answer it without even breaking down like that. But that's me highlighting to you how much things are being linked together in bio. Okay? And how to set complicated question, right? As a setter is to basically mix a lot of chapter together. That is like another perspective to you. As a setter, if I want to set a challenging question, right? Like let's say your school teacher, your bio teacher is like, okay, I need to set this paper. I want to make it hard. How do I make it hard? Mix a lot of topics together. That is how to make a question more complicated than it has to be, right? Yeah. So this is an example, but this is not a difficult question. This is actually a pretty basic question. Okay. The route taken by carbon dioxide produced in the small intestine. So let's just zoom into this. The small intestine is here. The carbon dioxide is produced here. If you memorize or you understood this diagram, you realize that the blood is only flowing in one direction. The carbon dioxide that is produced in small intestine, it will go to the liver via hepatic portal vein because that's the only direction. From here, from the liver, it will go back to the heart via hepatic vein and vena cava. It enters the heart. If you want to be more detailed, right atrium, right ventricle, and then pulmonary artery to the lung. And then from the lung, it's getting expelled out through the alveoli, right? You guys have already learned alveoli. That is the gaseous exchange site. Okay, so again, small intestine, the liver, hepatic portal vein, vena cava, the heart, right atrium, right ventricle, pulmonary artery to the lung, and then from the lung, it will get expelled out of the body. So that is the route taken. And when you have this picture, it become very easy, right? Like you just have to like literally trace where it's being produced and where do you want it to go. So that so this diagram, very important. Go and familiarize yourself. You don't have to memorize, you don't have to draw it out. Even without it, you should know like how would it flow. I think it's a bit more complicated because it involves this part. I can imagine this question, this part is the harder part. People is gonna just say, oh, from small intestine, it returns to the heart via vena cava. But there is no vein from small intestine. It has to go through hepatic portal vein to the liver and then hepatic vein to the heart. So that is the digestion part talking. Yeah. So this kind of question is the slightly challenging question, and it requires a lot. It really requires you like to understand a few topics together, right? So look out for those kind of questions. Even if you are like, this kind of question won't really test in O-level. Or if it's tested in O-level, it's probably just one question. It won't be all questions like that. That's fair. But I feel like if you're learning it, we learn it good, right? So that kind of understanding, if you can achieve that kind of understanding, I think it's very good. Yeah. Okay. That's all. So I'm going to quickly go through like about the tuition details and also about other resources about Overmark, and then I'll take Q&A. Yeah. Okay, so very quick. For tuition, for Sec 4, I actually already have some classes, weekday night and weekends, mainly on weekday night and weekend because as I mentioned just now, I'm working. I am opening up both online and physical location option, but it really depends on intake. So I want you to understand that it depends on intake because it's a group tuition after all. And if we can all agree upon one time and all want to be physical location, I'm definitely open to that option. So it depends on uptake. It's $40 per hour and it's one lesson every week. So very standard. As I mentioned just now, pure bio 2 hours and combined bio 1.5. So why do I put combined bio 1.5? It's because I really think that for combined bio, the content is a bit less and you also have your chem to take care of, right? So that's why I think 1.5 is reasonable. So minimum 3 and maximum 5. I know for other tuition, other subjects in Overmark is doing maximum 8, but I'm gonna keep it low first. Also because of government regulation, I don't really know how they do it, to be honest, because maximum still 5, right? Like social rule. So I'm not very sure, but I will keep it at minimum 3, maximum 5. Yeah, small group also fun, right? More interaction time. So this is a sign up QR code. Wait. Yeah, this is a sign up QR code. And it's already open. Submit the form. I have 2 classes already actually. They are not full yet, so feel free to like sign up now. And if you can't make it for those, you just submit the form and indicate the time that you can make it. And if there are other people that I can like, match your, or you find a group of friends that are like, or you find 2 other friends to start a class, that's totally fine as well, right? So, but currently there is these classes that are available. If you can make it, I encourage you to just join this class first, because these are like the classes that I have for Sec 4 already. Yeah. Yes. Okay, and then to the point that no, I don't feel like I need tuition because I'm doing actually quite well, but I just like, what other things can we offer to you, right? So last year we did a mock paper review during September for the O-level students, right? Maybe if you're Sec 3 you would have known that, but by then you haven't learned all the subjects yet, right? You haven't learned all the chapters yet. But look out for those kind of events. It's like the tutor basically set a paper, and I tried like why I tell you like how to make challenging questions is exactly because like I try to mix and match a few topics together to make it a slightly harder paper. And to do that well, you need to have a even deeper understanding. That is free. It's totally free. This event is free. So look out for it in September. And then curated notes are already open to ordering. Curated notes. Wait, I have it. Yeah, I wanted to show you guys the curated notes. The thinner one is pure bio, because it's only bio. It's 140 pages. And then the thick one, the super thick one, is combined bio and chem, because both is in one booklet, and it's about 240 pages, 230 plus pages. Yeah. And many subjects are available. There's English, SS, history, math and E-math, E-math and E-math. I think that is all for O-level. Yeah. And then also look out for crash course. There'll be more details, but revamping our crash course, both the curated notes like crash course for 2022 is like brand new, improved version. So do look out for it. Our website, Telegram, and Instagram. The crash course will open around maybe June holidays or before June holidays, the sign up. Yeah, look out for those details. Okay, that is all. Thank you so much for joining. Now I will like take questions. If not, feel free to leave if you are done. Because no, we won't have more content. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Yesterday the Sec 3s were like super enthused about asking questions. But they asked a lot of not really like O-level related questions. It's just like a chat. It's more like a chat than like, oh, how do I study? Yeah, but if not, sign up for group tuition if you're interested. If not, or sign up for the curated note orders. We just bought is 2022. Like we just recently printed new one for 2022. Yep. If not, you have any question about like, I don't know, any question is fine. Studying, holiday. So the question is it possible for you to post the slides in Telegram? This whole session is recorded. Actually, all the Head Start program is recorded. So if you didn't have time to attend them, we will eventually post, not be like Daryl will post the YouTube, will post the session to YouTube. Yeah. So you can go and you go YouTube to review all the slides. Yeah. Someone also asked, what's the best method to study for bio? This kind of question, right? Okay, it's time for me to sell this thing. It's like an Overmark podcast. I don't know if you have heard of it. It's called The Group Chat. It is helmed by Daryl and Emmanuel, who was a A-level tutor. But in the podcast, I guested on a podcast a few times, right, to record about like a few different topics. The whole of December podcast is going to be me, so look out for it. And I did share about, we have one podcast just for bio, so you can go and look for it on Spotify, search for like Overmark or the group chat. But I will briefly answer this question. What's the best method to study for bio? I'm going to bring back to the slide just now. This slide. Okay. Oh, I was there. This slide. So actually, every single time when I do a session with people, right, this question will always come up. What's the best method to study for bio? Look at this part, the understanding the practice one. I think that is the best method. You understand, and then you apply your knowledge, and then you strengthen your understanding. Then someone asked me like, oh, so simple. Yeah, I think it's that simple. Like, I think the best way to study bio is really like you must fully understand the content, and then you must apply your knowledge. It is really that simple. But I would say it's not easy. It's not easy to execute. Because there are so much, and sometimes you're just like, oh, I think I understand, but do you actually understand, right? That's why, do you really understand? And I think the method wise, it really works differently for different people. Some people, they are super visual, so they draw like their own heart, and they draw, they're super nice, they spend super long to draw like a pretty heart, to draw a lot of pretty notes. Yeah, some people are like that, and with that pretty notes, they really could absorb information better. I'm the complete opposite. When I was a student, when I make notes, right, I only write down words. There's no like hardly any diagram, and most some arrows. Because to me, what I care about was like, how do I phrase my explanation? Like, how do I phrase my explanation? What is the meaning of those words? Yeah, I care a lot more about the words, the content. But some people are just like more visual. They need like the whole like, diagram and everything. Yeah, I think it depends on you. You need to find your own method. Like, you maybe have some experience. Sometimes you look at your notes and you're like, okay, I like this note. Sometimes you don't like this kind of notes. So you would, I think, know a little bit of preference about yourself. If you don't know yet, right, I think it's about like, you can try to find out, experience a few things, right? Experience a few kind of method, and which one works the best for you. And if you want, right, you must experience now. You don't before like a few weeks before exam, then you start experiencing, okay, do I like this method more? Do I like that method more? No, we want to find out the method now, so that right before exam, you're using the most efficient method, right? Next question is, for the cardiac cycle graph, why did the aorta pressure increase? Aorta pressure increase. Aorta pressure increase after the seminal valve open. Because blood flows into the aorta. Yeah. So two things that, so aorta cannot contract, but it depends on the volume of blood. So because blood flows from left ventricle to aorta, therefore the aorta blood pressure increase. Yeah. Good question. When doing question to practice, so another question is, when doing questions to practice, should I open my notes or to refer, or I just answer to my best of ability? I think it really depends on you, but I have quite a strong opinion in that lah. I think you should definitely not refer to your notes. I know it works differently for different people, but my own opinion is to not refer, because sorry to keep referring to this, but when you're doing practice, right, it's really to apply your knowledge. If you are referring to your notes, you are not applying knowledge. You are copy pasting, right? I think what is good is that before you practice, you go and try to memorize it one time. It may not be perfect, but at least you are trying to recall when you are, right? That's the key part about memorizing, right? Recalling what you have learned. So I think it will be good to, before you want to do any practice paper, I know it's super tempting. because studying is so boring and doing practice paper is slightly less boring, but it will be good to just go and study all the content first, and then do the practice question without your notes. Of course, after you do already, you try already, then you go and refer, go and check, go and cross check. Yeah. So at least you need to do that testing of yourself. You need to test your ability, right? But when you test your ability, you cannot be like, oh, I don't need to study. I just take out the practice paper and start doing. Then that is like not correct sequence. You have to understand first. You have to memorize first. Then you can go and test yourself. If not, you have nothing to test yourself about. Yeah, I think this is a super good question as well, because it's something that I really believe in. Like some students always jump into doing practice paper, but I'm like, are you really ready to do practice paper? If you are not ready to do practice paper, you are wasting that practice paper. You get what I mean? Yeah. If I just remember the curated notes, is it enough to get A? Oh, that's a good question. I will say that no. Even though I want to say yes, but I will still have to say no, because you need to know how to apply what is in the curated notes. The curated notes will tell you all the keywords you need to know. That one I can very confidently tell you that. Like it provides all the keywords that you need to know, but the ability to apply, depending on what question is it, the ability to read the question and then understand what the question needs, I think is practicing. I think that's not what something the curated notes can teach you. Yeah. Yeah. So even though I want to say yes so that you will like be interested to buy, but it's no lah, cannot lah. It forms a good foundation, but you still need to practice, you still need to learn all your exam skills, what kind of question give what kind of words and things like that. Yeah. So practicing is still very important. Yeah. The content of curated notes. So the curated notes is curated such that it provides all the keywords to your syllabus, your learning outcome. I mean, for Sec 4, you'll probably have seen all your learning outcome already, right? You all would know what are the learning outcome, what are the things that you need to know. It is not super detailed. I would say what is detailed is your textbook, right? Textbook is very detailed, but it provided too many out of context, not necessary information. So that's why we decided that, okay, this is a good idea. Because sometimes after you understand already, you just want to know like what is the most important things. And there is some work example, like question to test you. They're not super complicated questions, but they're the question that is like checking your understanding along the way as you are studying. Yeah. Exam skills and stuff, they will have like work example, right? So those work examples, there are some that is like content, and there's some that's understanding, and there are some that is like answering technique. So there's a little bit, not really like exam skills, but it's more like work examples to give you a better context, how to answer exam questions, and how is this kind of concept, new knowledge applied in an exam manner. Yeah. How to deal with study burnout? I know how to deal with study burnout, but it's still, it's like I can tell you how, right? But you cannot, I cannot, but you have to do it yourself. So why are you having a burnout? Is it because you're studying too long, or you're just not motivated, right? You have to diagnose the cause of the study burnout. What is the source of this study burnout? I think one common thing about study burnout is that it's not effective. Like your time spent, the time that you invest in studying and the return of the studying is not enough. Like it's not proportionate. Like you feel like you spend a lot of time on studying, but you're not getting back what you want. I think that is one thing that may contribute to a burnout. Maybe or you just spend too long. Maybe you don't need to spend too long, right? Following up to the next question, how many hours should I study bio a day for holiday? My question to you is, how familiar are you with your Sec 3 topics? If you are very familiar with your Sec 3 topics, you did very well for your end of year, I will say spend time on other subject that you didn't do so well. And then spend less time on bio lah, because you already did so well for bio, but you are like didn't do well for bio, actually still have a lot of misconception, unsure about a lot of concept in bio, spend more time on spend more time. As how many times can you take out during holiday? Not too many lah. It's holiday after all. But spend more time, like it's more like, I think it's relative to other subjects, right? If you don't have other subjects to think of, you just spend time on like bio. But I would say you spend time on the subjects that you have the most problem with. Like if your English is already very good, if your math is already very good, then spend less time on them and just do some like a very basic revision. But make sure you get those things that you're not good right now. Yeah. And if let's say all subjects are bad, then you should increase the number of hours you study so that you can allocate enough time to all subjects. If you did super well for end of year last year, end of year like a few months back, I think it means that you have put in consistent effort during your Sec 3 times. And that means that you deserve the break. Okay, I think B3 for most subjects is pretty good. It means that you are at a average level for all subjects, which means that no subject is like super urgent. But you need to push that extra to get to see the A, right? I'm sure you want the A. So you need, during holiday, you spend time to push extra for all subjects, but you don't have to like go super detailed into any subject, but you spend enough time for each subject to push that extra, like B3 to A2, B3 to A1, things like that. Oh, very good question. The question is, what is group tuition like? Does everyone work on the same topic, or we work on whatever we are learning in school? It has to be the same topic lah, because everyone will be there and then I'll be teaching ma. So it will be everyone will be on the same topic. So okay, I can understand that maybe some school is faster, some school is slower. And if you're concerned about that, I would say that I think it's less of a concern, because ultimately we will finish the syllabus and we have to practice for it. Like we have to practice just the 20 chapters that I listed out to you all just now for O level. Maybe you are like learning something that not being taught, you are like going a bit too fast or going a bit too slow. I think we'll definitely try to balance for everyone. And I would say most conventionally all schools are the same, so that is a good thing. Yeah. And before exam, like usually like the term 1 exam, the mid-year, that one is like just a lot of practices. So I think that one everyone is the same. Maybe the progress in terms of like progress is different, but the amount of content that we deliver and the amount of practices that we're gonna go through, all the not just about content, right? All our exam techniques, all the practices, time management, will be similar. Yeah. And of course, we need to recap Sec 3 chapter also. So along the way, we'll be recapping Sec 3 chapters. And those are applicable to everyone. Doesn't matter what progress your school is at. Yeah. Yeah. If you have any more questions, or like any clarification about what I just said, feel free to send in. Yeah, if not, I think everyone has been asking great questions. And I love it when students ask questions. Because it means you guys are thinking, right? You only ask questions because you're thinking. But if you have no question, it's also totally fine. I'm not saying that you're not thinking, but just like maybe you already know, or you don't have anything that you're curious of. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye. I will stay until last person leave. Yeah. Bye bye. Do you have any more questions? If not, I will end this also.